Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Do you feel stuck, silent, and stressed? Is something hurting your heart and soul? Are you burning yourself out? If so, you are in the right place because this is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with inner peace and joy. Let's get started.
Hey, for the last few episodes, we have been talking about how to be happy secrets. And in our last episode, I asked you to think about a very, very, very important question. And it has to do with how many of us have a tendency to blame and judge ourselves and, do a lot of shaming and guilt trips. It's all kind of goes hand in hand. And a lot of us justify engaging in those kinds of behaviors, the blaming, the judging, the giving ourselves the shame and guilt trips, with the thinking that is a way for us to hold ourselves accountable. And it's like, that's like I'm facing up to the reality of the mistakes that I've made and the weaknesses that I have. And if I don't face up to these truths and I don't face up to these realities, then how will I change? How will I stop making those mistakes? So the thinking is that this is actually something that helps to motivate me to create change and change for the better, to learn from my mistakes. And I asked you to reflect on, if that's your thinking, I want you to really take a look at your own life experience and think about it like very, very honestly and as objectively as you possibly can. What percentage of the time has this strategy actually worked for you? What percentage of the time has it actually helped you to create positive change in your life? To stop a bad habit, for example, or to change a bad habit, create a more positive habit. When you have identified a negative one and then you have blamed and judged yourself around it, or given yourself a lot of shame or guilt trips, how often has this strategy actually helped you to change that bad habit? Or if it was something that you did wrong, how often has it helped you and motivated you to right that wrong? For example, by going and apologizing to the person that you did wrong and, doing what you could to solve the problem or correct that injustice or whatever it was. How often? I'm willing to bet with you that if you really take stock of your own life experience and how often this strategy has really worked for you in terms of helping you create positive change in your life, I'm willing to bet you that you will find that it has either never worked or worked, like most of the time, it has not worked. The vast majority of the time, it does not work. It just doesn't, right? And that's just one of the facts of life. I mean, there have been so many research studies that have been done on this point. It's like again and again and again and again, what we see is that this kind of blaming and judging, see, it's like, yeah, it can help you become more aware that hey, there's something wrong, and what it was that you did wrong. It can help you become more aware of your mistakes, and it absolutely certainly makes you feel bad about them. But the problem, or the the challenge, is that that's pretty much it. That's where its functionality and its usefulness kind of ends. So it helps you to become aware of the problem, or that a problem exists, and what the problem may be. And I say what the problem may be because a lot of times when people are engaged in blaming and judging, what they think the problem is, because in terms of the specifics of the blame and the judgment, the thoughts, they're usually off. It's like whatever you think the problem is not really the problem, or it's only a very surface level analysis of what the problem is. The thoughts of blame and judgment do not generally penetrate to the root cause. They do not reveal in general the root cause of what the problem is. And so even when you attempt a solution or you implement a solution coming from this perspective of blame and judgment, and understanding the problem from this perspective of blame and judgment, the solutions that you come up with are only addressing the surface level symptoms of whatever the problem is. And so in the short term, it may even have some impact, but in the that seems to help somewhat. But in general, it just doesn't do enough, to really remove the problem. And in general, what we find is that because these attitudes of blame and judgment don't really get to the root cause of what the real problem is, the problem keeps returning again and again and again, like a really bad weed. It's like you're like, you have your garden and there's these weeds creeping up, and you're like, you thought you got rid of the weed, and then before you know it, poof, it's back there again, and in fact there are many more of them than when you even first started. And it's like, you feel like you're fighting a losing battle with all these weeds creeping up on you. You're like, what in the world is going on? Why do these weeds keep coming back? Why does this problem keep coming back? And you just blame and judge yourself even more. And you make yourself feel even bad, even worse, every time the problem comes back. See? But the reason the problem is really coming back again and again, even after all your blaming and judging last time and whatever action you took as a result to correct the problem, the reason the problem still keeps coming back is because the thinking, the perspective, the blaming and judging perspective, it didn't allow you to see the real root cause. you see, and so you never, in fact, addressed the root cause. You never removed the weed from the root, and that's why the weed is coming back, the problem is coming back. That's why you continue to find yourself engaging or struggling with that problem again and again over time. Right? It's sort of like if you have a bad habit, right? And you give yourself a lot of like shame and guilt and blame and judgment about why you have the bad habit. You know, for a lot of people, hey, you know what happens is that you have the bad habit, and all the blaming and the shaming and the guilt trips, they make you feel so bad. You don't even think about stopping the bad habit. You just steep even deeper into it. Right? Because you're like, oh, I just am bad. I am weak. And then you accept that about yourself. You see, it's like, and then you're like, okay, well, if I am weak, if I am bad, well, then I'm just going to continue the behavior. It actually gives you permission in a way to continue the behavior, because you accept that negative thinking about yourself and about how you are and who you are. And in other cases, you know, it's like you give yourself blame and judgment about the bad habit, and you say, okay, so I have to stop this, I have to change this. And so for a while you make a lot of effort to stop that bad habit, change that bad habit. Like maybe it's like eating unhealthy foods, you know, that make you put on a lot of weight, and then you feel all ugly and gross and horrible, and you hate your body because of how you think it looks so ugly and horrible when you've put on all this weight, you know. And so you're like, okay, you know what? I have to eat better. I have to do better. And so, you know, for a while you get on this quest to eat more healthy and stuff. And maybe for a while you're actually able to do it. Like you're able to eat really well and stick to a really healthy diet. But then before you know it, it's like life happens. Maybe you end up at a party or, you know, something, and then it's like, oh, there's all this temptation, and you have all these people in your life, and even a voice inside your head, and they say, hey, you know, it doesn't hurt just to eat a little bit. Come on, this is a special occasion for me. You know, I bought this, you know, or I made this with my own hands, and oh, please eat it for me to make, like, you know, it means so much to me if you try this and tell me how you like it, and, you know, and hey, it doesn't hurt just to eat a little bit, and hey, this is a special occasion, you deserve a treat. And you give into that temptation, into that thinking. And then before you know it, it's like you've made a few special occasion exceptions too many. And before you know it, it's like, you're back in the old habits. You've fallen off your good diet bandwagon. And then the weight starts to come back, and with it, like all that blame and judgment, you know, and the other ill effects of when you're not eating the good healthy diet that you know you should be eating, and you should all over yourself. Yeah, should all over yourself, as one of my teachers expresses it. and then you're back to feeling horrible about it again. You see? So it's like, and it can become like the cycle. Happens over and over and over and over again. How many people have, do you know who have been struggling with something like this? And how many times in your own life have you found yourself struggling with this kind of pattern and behavior? Yeah. Pretty much all of us have had this kind of experience in our lives. And I'll tell you, the reason, like I said, the reason why this is happening is because you never addressed the root cause of the problem. And the reason you never addressed the root cause of the problem is because you never even really identified it in the first place. And the reason you never really identified it in the first place is because the perspective that you took to analyze the problem was one of blame and judgment. And when you're looking at the problem from a perspective of blame and judgment, you're not seeing the full picture of what's going on. I'm not saying that the what you think is not true or is not accurate. In some cases, actually, that can be also the case. That your perspective is actually like really distorted for whatever reason. But a lot of times it's not even that there's that it's not accurate or that it's distorted. It's just that it's not the full picture. You're only looking at how the glass is half empty, and you're completely ignoring how the glass is half full. And when you don't have the full big picture perspective, how can you come up with a comprehensive solution? See, the glass half empty perspective generally is only looking at the surface level symptoms of what's going on. You may absolutely need to know and be aware of what the symptoms are at the surface level and take specific actions to address the symptoms. But you also need to look deeper and figure out the root causes of what's going on and address them as well. And that may be actually the more important, more fundamental thing that you need to do, especially if you're going to create permanent change and do it in a way that promotes your happiness and inner peace and growth in a positive manner. So blame and judgment, okay, fine. That they may be showing you part of the reality, but it's not the whole reality. So how do you get to the rest of the reality? How do you see the rest of what is going on? How do you get the perspective on the rest of what's going on? Well, you need to engage in compassion. Look at what's going on with compassion, with empathy, with loving kindness, right? Which allows you compassion, empathy, loving kindness. These ways of looking at things are not about turning a blind eye to what may be wrong, what may be missing. And they don't require you to do that either. You can see all of that and become aware of all of that even when you are looking from a lens of compassion and empathy and loving kindness. But at the same time, you see, it's like blame and judgment is sort of like having a black and white perspective. Things are either right or wrong, good or bad, black or white. But when you examine things from a perspective of compassion and empathy and loving kindness, you're able to see all the shades of gray, along with the black and the white. And so you're able to see, it's like you see the full spectrum. And so you're able to come up with solutions and an analysis of what's going on that's much more nuanced and much more comprehensive. And therefore your solutions to the issue are more holistic, more complete. And you are able to get to the root cause of what's going on and pluck that weed out from the root so that it doesn't keep coming back up in your life. And wouldn't you love that? Wouldn't you love that? So not only do you see the big picture perspective, remove the weed from its root, but the empathy, the compassion, the loving kindness perspective just also makes you feel so much better. It just makes you feel so much better in the moment and in the long term. And that's why it's so critical, and that's why it's so crucial. If your goal is inner peace and joy and happiness, this is not an option. This is something that you absolutely must learn to do for yourself. All right, so I'm looking at the time, and it's time to wrap up for today. Until we connect tomorrow, I just want to give you a quick reminder that, hey, if you find yourself struggling with this in your life, please do not continue to struggle with it on your own. Reach out for help and support. And I am just one person that you can reach out to help and support for. And you know how to get in touch with me. Just go to my website at www.academyofthriving.com. Click on the Contact Us page, and you'll see different options for how you can connect with me, including social media, email, and even phone. So until we connect next time, I wish you lots of peace and joy.